What you see now is our planet, Earth. Earth is the third planet from the Sun. She is now 4 billion years old and is so far the only planet that human life existed. In 2021, Earth's population reached almost 8 billion, and according to UN World Population, it is estimated that in 2050 it will reach about 10 billion. For the past 5 decades, humanity has become more resourceful. We have been able to improve life. Travel, for example. Way back when we have not invented automobile, we travel by mule or we ride horses. We don't really contribute to CO2 emission at that time. We have not have the best and the most high-tech that produce large scale of consumer goods. We don't burn that much fuel as we have not have access to fuel yet. We emit CO2 in a very low rate that it can't have any effects to the environment. Fast forward. In a short period of time, humanity has changed life. In 1859, Edwin Drake drilled the first successful well through rock and produced crude oil. It was drilled to a depth of 280 ft by the American Merrimack Company. The discovery of petroleum in Titusville led to the Pennsylvania oil rush, making oil one of the most valuable commodities in America. On December 17, 1903, Wilbur and Orville Wright made 4 brief flights at Kitty Hawk with their first powered aircraft. The Wright brothers had invented the first successful airplane. The automobile was first invented and perfected in Germany and France in the late 1800s. And then these. Now, what are the results of these human activities? I mean, this is actually not bad that we have these technology. In fact, this makes life worth living for. Cars get us to work easy. We travel overseas in a matter of hours. We enjoy warm or cold homes. We enjoy using phones or any gadgets. You may have even in the process it has carbon footprint. Let me present to you facts that prove we're in a climate emergency. There's more carbon dioxide in our atmosphere than at any time in human history. In February and March 2021, sensors at the Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii, which has tracked Earth's atmospheric concentration of CO2 since the late 1950s, detected CO2 concentrations of more than 417 parts per million. Pre-industrial levels were 278 parts per million, which means that humans are halfway to doubling the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere compared to the period between 1750 and 1800s. Extreme heat events have become more frequent and severe. You only need to think of recent devastating wildfires in Australia, California, or Southern Europe to see that climate change is leading to more frequent and more severe hot weather events. The kind of extreme heat event that would have only happened on average once every 10 years between 1850 and 1800 now likely occurs 2.8 times every 10 years and is likely to occur 4.1 times every 10 years in a world that hits 1.5 C of future warming. The same is true of once in every 50 years events. They're now more likely to occur 4.8 times in 50 years, and in a post-1.5 C world that will be 8.6 times every 50 years. Heavy rain is also more common because of climate change. The kind of heavy one-day rain that 150 years ago would have only happened once every 10 years is now happening 1.3 times every 10 years. In a world warmed by 1.5 C, that will go up to 1.5 times. Humans have already caused 1.07 C of warming. The IPCC report estimates that global surface temperatures are now 1.07 C warmer than they were between 1850 to 1900. Since 1970, global surface temperatures have risen faster than in any 50-year period over the last 2,000 years, and this has been particularly pronounced in recent years, with 2016 to 2020 being the hottest 5-year period recorded since at least 1850. And just in case there was any remaining doubt, the IPCC report makes it clear that the principal driver of these changes in temperature are down to human-released greenhouse gases. Sea levels are rising faster today than ever before. Melting ice sheets and glaciers and warming oceans lead to higher sea levels. Since 19, sea levels have risen faster than in any preceding century in at least the last 3,000 years, and this is set to continue for a very long time. Because oceans take a long time to warm, a lot of sea level rise is already baked in. If warming is limited to 1.5 C, then over the next 2,000 years global mean sea level will rise to between 2 and 3 meters above current levels. If warming is limited to 2 C, this rises to between 2 and 6 meters above current levels. Arctic sea ice is rapidly diminishing. Temperatures in the Arctic are rising faster than almost anywhere else on the planet. Between 2011 and 2020, annual Arctic sea ice reached its lowest level since at least 1850, and late summer Arctic sea ice was smaller than at any time in at least the past 1,000 years. Under all the future emissions scenarios in the IPCC report the sea ice minimum will fall below 1 million square kilometer at least once before 2050, making the area practically free of sea ice altogether. This level is about 15% of the average September sea ice observed between 1979 and 1988. Two-thirds of extreme weather events in the last 20 years were influenced by humans. The number of floods and heavy rains has quadrupled since 1980 and doubled since 2004. Extreme temperatures, droughts, and wildfires have also more than doubled in the last 40 years. While no extreme weather event is never down to a single cause, climate scientists are increasingly exploring the human fingerprints on floods, heat waves, droughts, and storms. Carbon Brief, a UK-based website covering climate science, gathered data from 230 studies into extreme event attribution and found that 68% of all extreme weather events studied in the last 20 years were made more likely or more severe by human-caused climate change. Heat waves account for 43% of such events. Droughts make up 17% and heavy rainfall or floods account for 16%. Average wildlife populations have dropped by 60% in just over 40 years. The average size of vertebrate, mammals, fish, birds, and reptiles. Populations declined by 60% between 1970 and 2014, according to the Biennial Living Planet report published by the Zoological Society of London and the WWF. That doesn't mean that total animal populations have declined by 60%, however, as the report compares the relative decline of different animal populations. Imagine a population of 10 rhinos where 9 of them died, a 90% population drop. Add that to a population of 1,000 sparrows where 100 of them died, a 10% decrease. The average population decrease across these two groups would be 50%, even though the loss of individuals would be just 10.08%. Whatever way you stack the numbers, climate change is definitely a factor here. An international panel of scientists, backed by the UN, argues that climate change is playing an increasing role in driving species to extinction. It is thought to be the third biggest driver of biodiversity loss after changes in land and sea use and overexploitation of resources. Even under a 2 degrees Celsius warming scenario, 5% of animal and plant species will be at risk from extinction. Coral reefs are particularly vulnerable to extreme warming events. Their cover could be reduced to just 1% of current levels at 2 degrees Celsius of warming.